It's about bloody time I make this damn video. So, by all accounts now, Reylo is canon. It's canon. It's real. All those years were for everything. Reylo is canon. Well, we've had a interesting time here in the Reylo-verse. All of Reylo stan Twitter right now is very angry. I'm filming this in a weird mind space, but I knew that I always wanted to film this video about my favorite space couple. Pride and Prejudice in space. We have Kylo and Rey. Or Ben Solo and Rey. I've sprinkled Reylo here and there within my videos. Once I saw The Last Jedi, that's when I became a public Reylo. It was very quiet before The Last Jedi. I wanted to stay quiet about shipping Reylo because it seemed like a not very healthy relationship. When it's someone who does have followers, you have to kind of be gentle about certain couples because sometimes you don't know like the type of people who are following you, and if you encourage that type of behavior, it's not always like a good thing. I think we're all adults, and I'm really sick of just being careful about like what I love in fiction, and what I love in fiction is hate to love, and this is the quintessential relationship for the trope of hate to love. And it was played out so beautifully through 3 movies, particularly just The Last Jedi, because Rian Johnson is God. You know what? It's time to talk about Reylo because it's canon. And I'm not going to be silent anymore. And I really haven't been silent for like 2 years. But if you follow me on Twitter, then you know, because that's all I talk about. Now that The Rise of Skywalker is out, we got Reylo canon. However, there's just a lot of things that this fandom is very upset about. But let's start from the beginning. So in 2014, we got The Force Awakens. This is when Disney bought out Star Wars and decided to make a new sequel trilogy to the original Star Wars films from the 1970s and early 80s. And now we got some new characters that we get to follow. Yay, yay, yay. So me being a, young 21-year-old going into the theater, I was all excited to watch the new Star Wars film with my family. And lo and behold, Kylo Ren steps into my life. Changes my life forever. Adam Driver does. Yep. Well, I kind of had a love for Star Wars. That love came from my brother, who is a mega fan and has an encyclopedia of knowledge of the old canon, and just, he knows everything. I always felt like Star Wars was his, so I never really touched it because I had like Twilight, and we both loved Harry Potter, and there's Lord of the Rings, and so I was just like, he loves Star Wars. I'll let him have that. He can be a major stan of that fandom. While I had a deep affection for the film, I wasn't like, it was my everything. I grew up with the prequel trilogy, so I remember I saw every single film in theaters, and I loved Padme. I loved her hair. I loved the fashion. I remember being very depressed when she died, because when you're so young, when the last movie came out, I think I was 11, didn't register that this was Darth Vader's story. I was very invested in Anakin and Padme at that time, because I've always loved love. So as a 20-something-year-old going into The Force Awakens, I was not expecting to have such a visceral reaction to when Kylo Ren took off his helmet. Many other people who also ship Reylo have this same story, but I remember him taking off his helmet and just being like, ooh, I am Are you attractive? As the person on the internet, I had seen like the precast photos, all of the, the script read, like behind the scene photos. I had already seen Adam Driver, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. And I knew he was playing some type of bad guy. It was so subtle in The Force Awakens that it was really hard to catch. And I remember leaving the theater and being like, oh yeah, that was a good movie. I wasn't like too obsessed with it yet. And then I saw that movie 3 times in theaters, and when it came out and was able to watch it on your TV, that's when like I started really kind of getting intrigued by this idea that maybe this could be an interesting couple. But it wasn't like take hold, like, yes, you must ship these people, they are your OTP. It wasn't that until right before The Last Jedi came out, I really started seeing the excitement around Kylo and Rey. All through those 2 years in between The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, my like attraction level to Adam Driver was building and building, and also like I love Daisy Ridley. A lot of people were like, oh, but Kylo, like, why would you ever ship Reylo? Because Kylo killed his father. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't really care. The big argument behind Kylo and Rey being together is like, it's very unhealthy. He's manipulative. Obviously, the bad guy, you're shipping him with this girl who doesn't really have know-how in the world and how it works. She's just trying to find her place in all this. I specifically remember going into Last Jedi. I started being more vocal about shipping Reylo right before that movie came out. And then going into it, I remember saying to one of my friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We're going to see something happen between Kylo and Rey. And of course, the Force bond happens. I have to preference this saying that I love The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is my favorite movie of the Star Wars saga. A lot of people think that's sacrilege. And you know, if that's your opinion, that's fine. But this is my opinion, and you're here to watch my video, so please don't bash that. I think Rian Johnson did a beautiful job with The Last Jedi. I think he's a great storyteller. I think the pace of that film fit perfectly with development of characters. I really love the themes he weaved in throughout the whole film. I know a lot of people don't love that there was 2 adventures going on at once, and while it's not my favorite thing, it still makes a lot of sense to me because I think these characters really needed to grow by being apart. I didn't love The Force Awakens because, I mean, The Force Awakens is pretty much a new hope. I was very against the idea of them making Kylo and Rey related because that's just boring. Like, why would you do that again? Because so many of the things that they were just doing again just to please audiences. I wanted something new. I consume stories at an incredible rate. I wasn't incredibly obsessed with the original trilogy. I didn't really want to see that whole thing again. So that's why I love The Last Jedi. It's because it kind of took Star Wars and flipped it on its back. Like, we have a whole like space chase. We have incredible female characters, and not to mention the Force bond, which is probably one of my favorite things that for them to have come up with. Having like the characters speak to each other when they're on different planets because the Force is bringing them together, and it was so intriguing just to see both characters and how they reacted to one another in a space where they weren't fighting. Well, usually like big bads of films don't get a lot of character development, and while Kylo is not the big bad of the film or of the whole trilogy, you were made to think he was going to be. It was just really an intelligent way to build out this relationship between Rey and Kylo. And not only that, but it also fueled my Reylo heart. What that Force bond did for fan fiction and how many incredible things I have read of how they used that device. It's so fun. Also a little raunchy. The backlash after Last Jedi, like people hating that film, it just, again, fueled the hatred towards people who like to ship Reylo. After Last Jedi, that's when a lot of people became more public about wanting these 2 characters together. That's when I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to start talking about how I ship these 2. So after Last Jedi, I watched every single season of Girls, even when I told myself I was never going to watch Girls, just because I wanted to watch Adam Driver. And I've now thus seen every single film that Adam Driver has been in. There's something about him, like he's just so like weirdly attractive, and you know what, he's a big guy. One of my things that I hate about seeing Kylo at Disneyland is because the actors that they put into his costume are pretty much my height. They're not big, they're not like burly people. It does nothing to my fantasy at all with Kylo. I think one time I met a good Kylo. I wish they like got like a nice big guy with big shoulders to fill out the cowl. Anyways, that's my rant about Kylo at Disneyland. Because my favorite trope is hate to love. It's that like weird passion that you have before it turns into something of a caring nature. The person in that relationship who really had the hate was Rey. She hated Kylo because of what he did to Han, thought him of a monster, while Kylo, on the other hand, was more intrigued. There might have been some hate at the very end of Last Jedi after, you know, she didn't take his hand. It's just when you go through those like Force bond scenes, one of my favorite scenes, when they kind of look at each other after she calls him a monster and they're having like this like really intimate stare. It's like the first time that you feel like they see each other as human beings. One of my other favorite parts from Last Jedi is, of course, the fight scene, the Red Room scene. Best fight scene in all of Star Wars. Gosh, so many things in Last Jedi were just so beautiful. When General Holdo did her maneuver and just bringing Rose into it, and I just love Rose so much. Like her femininity showing through and her love and care, and then also the hope at the very end of Last Jedi when you see like a stable boy who's using the Force. I'm just so sad that none of that was brought into The Rise of Skywalker. We did get canon Reylo in Rise of Skywalker. I'm very sad that we literally just got one kiss. I can get behind the whole like tragic love story. I just think the whole film of Rise of Skywalker was really, really rushed. It should have been 2 films. They couldn't just rely on the audience to accept the fact that Palpatine's back. But why? It's tragic that the last thing Adam Driver gets to say is ow. Even though it's an hilarious ow. I wish there were just words or something spoken between Rey and Kylo at the very end. Instead, he just dies and disappears. And I've gone through many stages. At first, I was elated. I filmed a whole reaction video. It's been 4 years since The Force Awakens, 5 years since The Force Awakens came out, and I just got out of Rise of Skywalker, and I have so many feelings. I'm glad I'm making this video now. I was going to make a Reylo video before I saw this, and maybe I might be more jaded now. Yeah. Immediately coming out of the movie, I was happy, but I was heartbroken. But I was happy yet heartbroken. I was at peace, but I was heartbroken and just a little empty. Like I kind of just drifted through the last 5-10 minutes of the movie. It happened. Reylo is real. Reylo is real. Reylo is real. They're real. It's canon. It's out there. And I cannot be more grateful that I don't have to throw away this pillow. They're not related. They were made for each other. But it ended in devastation. Which I prepared myself for that. There are so many people who are so upset with the outcome of this film. And I think it gave us everything that we wanted. However, I can still be very upset with the outcome of the story. I'm upset, but I'm at peace. I was very shocked. I finally cried when I watched a video that someone put together on Twitter. I have never shipped something so hard, ever. Just years of speculation, of reading fan fiction, of fangirling and obsessing about 2 characters, the most compelling and complex couple I've ever seen developed in cinema, the heart and soul of the sequel trilogy. Yes, I wish someone was recording my reaction as soon as the whole thing was happening. Like you knew it was gonna happen, but there was maybe we weren't gonna get a kiss. But I remember I turned to my brother and I'm like, oh please kiss, and I was just like clawing because I physically couldn't take the anticipation. And then it happened and I didn't even watch the scene. I just knew it was happening and I was like, I hit my friend, I hit my brother, I hit the person on the other side of him, I hit my friend on the other side of my friend. I've never felt so validated for shipping 2 characters before in my life. Because it's real. Reylo is real. Oh, it's real. It was not. Sorry, Nico. My favorite character is dead. The movie was super rushed. I'm still like processing it. I kind of felt whiplash going through the whole movie. It's very different from Last Jedi, because Last Jedi had so many wonderful drawn out character moments, and I think that's what we were missing in this one. It was just like action scene after action scene after action scene. We didn't really get to know new characters. We didn't really get to follow up on old characters. There was nothing we knew about Rose. Ben didn't have any lines. It was all through his face, which is incredible acting on his part, but I wish we had
that scene that was just, it was more drawn out. There was more words spoken. There was more apologies or more like words of affirmation, things like that. Like I wish we had more of that at the very end. I was kind of relating Ben's story to kind of Jesus's story, I know, but it's because he turned his back on that old life. He died to himself. And then he sacrificed himself for something good, just like Jesus did. Jesus sacrificed himself for our sins. And Ben sacrificed himself for Rey. He wouldn't have done it for anyone else that he cared about. He loved Rey. That is why he did what he did. I don't know if he did it for the greater good. I think he did it for himself. But he understood what he had to do because he cared about that person. And that's just what you do. It makes sense of the outcome of Ben's life and why that all had to happen. My gosh, but seeing that smile at the very end and seeing them smile at each other and the Force bond was still there. All my fan fiction's coming to life. I was telling Alex, I was like, you know, I'm just gonna live in this like happy-go-lucky zone where they've kissed, and because he's like Jesus came back to the earth. He rose again. I have hope. Maybe, I mean, I know the Skywalker saga is over with, but in my mind, I feel like they will meet again and it's not the end of them. He made the ultimate sacrifice. He sacrificed himself. It just filled my heart. But I'm sad. I'm sad that he's dead. Ben Solo finished what his grandfather set out to do. He saved who he loved from death, which is what Anakin always wanted to do, and Ben did it. Rey just got up and left. Like she was unaffected by his death whatsoever. Why wasn't she more devastated? Was she at peace though because he disappeared? Did I talk about how this is probably one of the best build-ups of a relationship over years? Did we talk about that? Did we talk about how you could cut the sexual attraction with the knife and how there was so much tension and there was, oh my gosh, it was built so beautifully. From Angela, Reylo was endgame. They had a lovely kiss. Redemption happened and it was beautiful. He died, but he died with purpose, saving the woman he loved, who will now live on for him. One day they will be reunited in the Force. Okay.
And then after I watched it, I got on Twitter. This past year has just been like, Reylo. And I followed all of Stan Twitter. And Reylo Stan Twitter is very angry right now. We're all a little used and abused. But there are a lot of things that I know in Rise of Skywalker that they changed at the last minute. I just wish that we were able to see more of Daisy and Adam's performances at the very end. I haven't shipped something like this in a really, really long time. I can't describe it. Like it's so fun to theorize right before Rise of Skywalker came out. Fantasize about like, could this be? Is this really going to happen? Like the legit passion I felt for these two characters just to be together was just a ride itself. I shipped Hermione, but it never happened. It's just kind of like in my head, and I'll read a bunch of fics and like that'll sustain me for a while. The fact that Reylo is canon, pretty awesome. It's just like, in your face, you people who hated me. They're related. That's gross. You're shipping a really unhealthy relationship. He's manipulative. I'm like, I don't care. I knew going into Rise of Skywalker that it wasn't going to end well. Probably he was going to die because, yes, he could be redeemed, at least in the Force. But y'all know he wasn't going to I knew he wasn't going to survive. Like, I really wish he did. If he came back, he probably wouldn't have been thrown in jail. There's no way that Rey and Kylo would have happened after the crimes he did. He would have been killed. He probably would have been assassinated. What they could have done was what they could have showed his Force ghost. And that's why I didn't feel very satisfied coming out of The Rise of Skywalker, because I'm like, what happened to Ben? They showed Luke, they showed Leia, even Han got to come back as a memory, but nothing of Ben, which makes me think, is he stuck in limbo? If I were able to change Rise of Skywalker, while I just said I understand and Kylo would have been assassinated, I would have loved to see at the very end of the film, even though Rey should not be on Tatooine bearing lightsabers. Ugh. Someone had tweeted this out, and I kind of fell in love with this idea. After the main credits had rolled, there would be an end credit scene, like a pre-end credit scene where Rey was doing her meditation within the Force. She would have said, "Be with me, be with me, be with me," and then Ben would have come back and said, "Rey," and maybe touched her hand or touched her cheek or something. That would have been a great ending. We would just have some peace. Ben did become a Force ghost because freaking Anakin became a Force ghost. Why didn't we get Ben as a Force ghost? So a couple other things from Rise of Skywalker that I would have loved to change. So it's a year after Last Jedi. Apparently, Rey and Kylo haven't been talking through the Force bond, yet it is still alive and well. She was still so angry with him a year later. Were they not talking? Okay, loophole. Where is the hope of new Force users? These are the things I've written down in my phone. Ryan ended on such a beautiful note, seeing the boy with the broom. Where is the rest of the hope for everyone else? I know we kind of got Finn being a Force user that we kind of had to assume without him telling her, and apparently that's what he wanted to tell her the whole time, was that he is Force sensitive. If Leia is a Jedi, why didn't she train her son? This whole explanation of she needed to put her lightsaber down or else her son would have become evil or she would have killed her son, which is, he's still dead. Yet here she is in the new film training Rey. One of my most hated scenes in all of Star Wars, I think, was Princess Leia coming back to life in Ryan's film. So Ryan, I did not love that part. It was very weird and corny. I think a scene in Rise of Skywalker might be my most hated scene is when Rey is in her Force meditation bubble and everything is zooming around her and orbiting around her and she goes, "Be with me, be with me, be with me. You're not with me." And just the weird bits of comedic energy in this film just weren't placed correctly. Also, why was that weird fight with Poe in the very beginning? That's the only tension we really got in this whole film. And Rise of Skywalker, there wasn't enough time and there wasn't enough emotional development within this film. It was too fast. I don't think the characters reacted correctly to a lot of the scenes. It's some times the actors maybe weren't aware of things happening later on in the film, or things were just cut weirdly. I'm very displeased with how Rey reacted to Kylo dying and her just being fine. She spent more time with Kylo than she did with Poe, yet for some reason she is sobbing at the end of the film knowing that he is safe. We really had to suspend our disbelief in this whole treasure hunt to find the Sith reader. What is that thing called again? You know what I'm talking about? The thing that had to lead her to Palpatine. And even though the fact that Palpatine's back, but we really had to just suspend our disbelief with the dagger. The entire fleet coming out of the ground while Palpatine was able to be strong enough to lift them all up, even though they still needed a radio signal to get out of the planet. Oh my gosh, this is the thing that killed me the most. Well, a lot of people are very upset with the fact that Rey is a Palpatine. It was a theory that I had seen really early on. I would have liked more explanation on why Palpatine created Snoke, why he was a puppet. I think it was enough that he was Vader's voice in his head. What if he created Vader as a Force ghost or a Sith ghost or something to bring, I don't know, there's just something they could have done better. It doesn't make sense that Palpatine's granddaughter is that age, by the way. Her parents sold her to protect her. So the fact that there was an exchange of currency to protect her, to give her to someone who sold parts for money. They've done it before in Star Wars where they've given, Luke and Leia to different families to protect them. Why didn't you give them to someone that you had trusted or give them to someone from the Resistance? So I had this whole argument with my brother. Not really. I was just trying to be how did they track Baby Yoda? They're tracking a baby that everyone wants. So they put a tracker on Baby Yoda, right? How did they get the tracker on Baby Yoda? Why wasn't the tracker on Luke and Leia when they were babies? Why wasn't the tracker on Rey when she was a baby? The thing that I hate most of all, the very end scene of Rise of Skywalker, is Rey alone. Rey alone on a desert planet. She always wanted a family. Someone had brought this up. There's a scene in Force Awakens where she is like scrubbing the parts, and she looks at this old woman who is scrubbing the parts as well. It is up to the audience to decide like if she's looking at herself in the future. At the very end of the film, we're looking at Rey talking to another old woman by herself, telling her that now she's a Skywalker. What's crazy about being able to ship something that is like so ingrained into pop culture is that you actually have a lot of other people around you who are shipping them as well. That creates extra media for us to consume. One of my favorite things, which I started doing when I first watched The X-Files, I shipped Scully and Mulder like nobody's business. I would watch these like shipping videos on YouTube that people would edit together. And that's one of my favorite things to do whenever I'm like, oh, I just really need like a dose of Reylo. I would recommend, if you guys love shipping characters, go on YouTube and find all of like the Reylo videos or any ship that you ship, because if you ship it, somebody else does. A couple years ago, I watched a Reylo video that used the song Evermore in it, and it is the most perfect song for Reylo. If you listen to Evermore, think of Kylo and Rey. Oh wait, one of the biggest things I started doing right after I watched The Last Jedi was I started collecting all of the Reylo fan art. Reylo consumed me so much that a lot of my friends just started buying me stuff that was like Reylo. Like Christine bought me a dress that had Kylo and Rey on it. My friend Liz bought me like a piece of art. I literally have the most fantastic board on Pinterest. I'll leave it down below. I just pin all of the Reylo artwork. Sometimes I think about the fact that like my aunt and my church group leader from high school follow me on Pinterest, and it kind of gets me like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't pin this because it's a little saucy, but I do it anyways. My favorite interpretations of Reylo, I'll pop them up right here. I don't know all the artists' names. I highly encourage you guys support these people who make this artwork, because it's not for everyone in this fandom who are like contributing, whether that's like tweeting, fan art, fan fiction, fan vids, fan shipping vid. This community wouldn't be as great as it is. A year and a half ago, I remember going to Disneyland with a couple of my friends. One of my favorite memories of like being a Reylo shipper was doing our little Reylo evidence, where we would capture around Disneyland if Rey and Kylo were like together. It was all evidence because Reylo's canon and it's true. Fan fictions that I've read. So I've been a big fan fiction reader since Twilight, since like 2008. I go to fan fiction when I need more of the story. I recently just explained fan fiction to my cousin, and she was completely intrigued with this. She's like, wow, so like when you finish something, it's not really over, because then you can go continue reading more about it. I'm like, yes, you get it, you get it. I started reading Twilight fanfiction because I wanted a more steamier scene in Breaking Dawn. Fanfiction delivered. Another one of my friends when I was in high school told me about the ship Hermione, and that's when I started reading Hermione fanfiction. Pretty much all like 2008 to like 2013, I was only really reading Twilight and Harry Potter fanfiction. Mind you, I still have not finished Harry Potter. I'm on Deathly Hallows right now, so I'll be finishing in the next month. And then I started reading fan fiction about Captain Swan. There's not a lot out there. A lot of people do ship the ship, but now I've hit the motherlode of the fan fiction, and that is, you guessed it, Reylo. If you've never read fanfiction before, there's fanfiction.net, which is kind of old school. That's what I was reading like Twilight and Hermione fanfiction on. Now we've got Wattpad, we have Archive of Our Own, we have other private fanfiction sites. People put fanfiction up on Instagram, like it's all over the place. But the new big one is Archive of Our Own. It's a little hard to navigate that one. It's hard to like search for fics. So I'll leave down below a Tumblr page. It hasn't been updated since right before The Rise of Skywalker, so there's new stuff that's always coming out. This Tumblr page breaks down this person's favorite fics. They'll do like stuff that's rated mature, stuff that's, you know, rated teen, things that are alternate universe, things that are like in the universe. So if you're new into fan fiction, there's a thing called AU, which is called alternate universe. This is where you take the characters and you take them outside of the setting that they were originally placed in and put into a new setting. So I didn't allow myself to read alternate universes until after The Rise of Skywalker. Really, when you read any fan fiction, it's kind of hard to separate what's canon and what's not. So I just downloaded an alternate universe fic. It's set in
Russia in the late 1990s. Go I know not whither, and fetch I know not what. It's not on the list on the Tumblr, but I'll leave it down below. I read a lot of fan fiction. I do. And Reylo is pretty much the best thing to read on fan fiction right now. I think a lot of people are going to be writing fix-it fics. I've been asking for that on my Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I talk a lot about Reylo too, so follow me there. That's just how we're going to keep it alive. We're going to keep it alive within the fan fiction. Ben's not dead. not in my heart. He will never be dead. And it's just going to suck going back to Disneyland. And Kylo Ren is walking around Galaxy's Edge. And I have to pretend that he's alive. And that Kylo and Rey are fighting. Why do I think Reylo works? Like, why is it that so many people ship Kylo and Rey? There are a lot of Reylo videos out there. I'll leave them down below. You can follow this stupendous wave. He goes a lot into like why Reylo really works. A lot of people guessed early on, which became canon because they're a dyad in the Force, but a lot of people were suspecting that they were like yin and yang, so we have like the dark side and light side and it has to come together. The reason why I think Reylo works really well is because we kind of have two characters who are on opposite sides of the spectrum coming together to balance one another. It's not just because of the writing of Reylo, it's because of how each character was played. And I think a lot of that was because of The Last Jedi, the device that they used, which is the Force Bond. The only time that you see Kylo being calm is when he's in the presence of Rey. And the only time that you see Rey being volatile is when she's in the presence of Kylo. And because you're seeing the opposite sides of someone's character brought out from another person, it becomes passion. Passion, I think, is the key to a really good romance, and it's why I love Pride and Prejudice. And I've always said Rey and Kylo are Pride and Prejudice in space. It's Lizzie and it's Mr. Darcy. So we have someone who is of great standing, who has kind of turned his back on his family, and we have someone who is coming from nothing, who needs a family, who wants a family, and in that family that wants to take her in is the family that person has turned his back on. So we have a prideful person and we have a prejudiced person, but they're both pride and they're both prejudice. They can't seem to get over that fact to be able to be together when they are the most perfect people for each other. They had never been able to do that in Star Wars. There really hasn't been like a very healthy relationship in Star Wars ever. All Star Wars romances end in tragedy because we have these two very passionate, attractive young people who is the heroine and then also the villain. It's not just about like, okay, how are these characters are going to get together? It's how are these characters going to change each other to be able to be together. I felt madly in love with Reylo. It's so fun to ship these two characters because the little bits that we got, the hand touching, the quietness of Kylo when he was around Rey wanting to go to Kylo to help him, to save him. It was just so good. It was so fun to watch both of these characters come together. While I am deeply sad and frustrated with Rise of Skywalker and all of its faults, I still love that it became canon. I hope we see more of this in the future, of them in the future. I know that they said that they aren't going to be doing any more Star Wars anymore, but you know, Disney, they always love to bring around Star Wars to make a few extra bucks. Reylo was a fun ride, and I'm still going to be talking about it and tweeting about it and reading fan fiction. The Last Jedi made me love Star Wars, and I will be forever grateful for that. I love Star Wars. I love that I can enjoy it with my brother when it used to just be such like a surface level thing for me, but now it goes real deep. I love all the people that I got to meet through this and all the people that I get to talk to on Twitter. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope this was satisfying. I am really excited always to be talking about something that I love and I'm passionate about. And I love that you guys are also very passionate about this type of thing and encourage me to do this. So thank you all so much for watching. Keep shipping that Reylo. I'll see you guys on the future. Keep calm and fangirl on. Bye!